let's do 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 all together in one video. They're all about contingency tables. Contingency tables are just a row by column table. Certain number of rows, certain number of columns. So just to start, we need to be able to identify the degrees of freedom when we're given a contingency table. And that formula is given to us in chapter 11 as well, under the chi-square test for independence and homogeneity of proportions. Check it out right here, the degrees of freedom. In fact, let me just copy that. Whoops, let me just copy that little one. And I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to paste it in there. And there we have it. Degrees of freedom, rows minus 1 times columns minus 1. So for number 18, the degrees of freedom are going to be how many rows? 8 rows minus 1, so that's 7, times there's 4 columns minus 1, that's 3. So the degrees of freedom for 18, 21. For number 19, degrees of freedom, 7 by 5 contingency table, so 7 minus 1. So it's always rows times columns, right? Rows by columns, always. Rows first, then columns. Rows by columns. So 7 rows, so that's 7 minus 1 is 6, times 5 minus 1 is 4. 6 times 4 is 24 degrees of freedom. 20. 3 by 5. 3 minus 1 is 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. So that's 8 degrees of freedom. 21, the degrees of freedom. 5 minus 1 is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. 12 degrees of freedom there. Now 22 asks us a different kind of question. 22 says, given that a contingency table has dimensions of 5 by 5, what is the critical value of chi-square at alpha equals 0.05? So we know if we want the critical value, we need degrees of freedom and we need alpha, and we go to the table to get the rest, right? So let's first find degrees of freedom for number 22. 5 rows, so that's 5 minus 1 is 4. 5 columns, 5 minus 1 is 4. So 16 degrees of freedom. So degrees of freedom for number 22 is 16. Alpha's 0.05. Let's go to the table and see what we get. I'm going to the chi-square table, the last one. 16 degrees of freedom, 0.05. 26.296. That's our chi-square value. Chi-square critical value, 26.296. Critical value, 26.296. There we go.